Travis Hendricks and Coach Pierce, recording live from Century Bar and Grill here in Alpine. Travis, you had a couple questions for...
Well, first of all, I just want to say that this is an exciting time in the athletics program at Sul Ross State University. We're very pleased that Coach Pierce won and Coach Meschke will be joining us here in just a little bit. And we hope to keep this thing going, and we're excited to be here. And Coach, my first question for you this morning is, it's been a tough week of practice with injuries. Your thoughts as we prepare to head into the game with ETBU?
Well, it's football, so it's a collision sport. It's week 7, or going into, and everybody's beat up this time of year. You see from NFL all the way down. So you got to fight through it. We got some young guys. Actually, this week in practice, a couple guys got dinged up a little bit, but they have limited roles this week. But it just gives another guy another opportunity to play, go out there and represent the university.
Absolutely. Coach, we've talked a little bit in the past about how this is such a young team. You have tons and tons of young talent. We have senior leadership here. How important is senior leadership on a young team like this?
It's huge at every level, or every team needs that senior leadership. Unfortunately, when I came in a year ago, I decided to build this program up with Texas high school players. We brought in about 50 last year. We brought in another 50. And when we came to camp, we had about 130 players report to camp, and we only had 25 upperclassmen.
Yeah.
So it is a young team. So you do kind of miss that element of it with the senior leadership. I got some great seniors. I got some guys that paid their dues to stay in the program. You kind of go through that learning curve with these young guys. What it means to be a college athlete and a student athlete and the grind of the athletic season. So they're going through that, and a lot of these young guys, due to injuries or whatever, are getting opportunities to play early. I tell them when I recruit them, if you went to Mary Hardin-Baylor, you'd probably be on their JV or developmental squad 2 or 3 years where you got a chance to compete right now.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. So,
Coach, you talked earlier this week about ETBU's running game, how they like to run the ball. They lack the physicality of Mary Hardin-Baylor. What makes this team so dangerous on offense, and what will we need to do to shut down the run?
Really, ETBU's a high-tempo offense. They throw it around probably a little bit more than they run it. Last week against Belhaven, they played in that monsoon hurricane that came through Texas, and they got the game moved up to 11 a.m. So I don't think they had a passing game. And they had a running back last week, rushed for 400 yards. I think it's might be like a conference record. It's in the top 10 in NCAA history. So I think that was the main reason why his success was on the field last week. So hopefully, I don't care any game, you got to stop the running game. And that's our focus. And on the opposite side, we want to develop a running game. That's on every level. So it's going to be a challenging task, but they're a big play team on both sides with big runs or big passes.
Absolutely. You just brought up your own running game here for the Lobos. You have 2 different running backs you kind of been working on, Hassan Lipscomb and Wilton Greer. Talk a little bit about what each of those bring to the table individually and together as a timeshare as a running back backfield. Right.
Will's he's a freshman. He's from the Austin area. He's undersized, so that's probably why recruiting whatever got passed over. He's developing into a really good back for us. And like I say, he's a freshman. Put 200-yard games together, one against Mary Hardin-Baylor, one against, I think, Hardin-Simmons. Last week he was a little bit down on stats-wise, but carried the ball really well. Hassan came to Sul Ross before I got here, and then I set out a year, ran track for us last year, got involved. So he's kind of knocking the rust off. He had a real great week of practice. It's the best Hassan looked all season. He was nursing a knee injury earlier in the year, too. So they're both kind of different. One's more of a third down back, that would be Hassan. Will's more of a, first, second down back. Even though he's undersized, he's physical. And, I know being a defensive guy, it's tough to, when you got guys running behind like Juan, who's 6'7", it's hard to find those little running backs.
Yes.
And he can find those little spaces and get through there. And he's starting to develop. So it's a good thing to have both of them.
Yeah.
Coach, talk a little bit about special teams performance against McMurray last week. You noted that there was improvement, especially on kickoff coverage. What are some areas also that concern you on special teams as we face the Tigers?
Well, due to our injuries and just playing young guys, special teams have been very inconsistent for us this year. Mary Hardin-Baylor, we gave up a punt return. Hardin-Simmons, we gave up a punt return. Our kicking situation hasn't been as productive as we wanted. Zach Roberson, our defensive end, is our kickoff guy. So it kind of tells you that, and it's kind of, when we line up the kickoff, I tell the guys, we got schemed for it, but sometimes the ball goes a different direction. So, last week we didn't shoot ourselves in the foot with special teams. We covered well. We didn't give up any big plays. And that's what I've been preaching with our special teams. We just can't beat ourselves. So,
coming off of a big win last week against McMurray, how do you take a game like that and build off of it and kind of try and duplicate a game? Not necessarily duplicate it, but again, build off of it for this homecoming week.
Well, before I look at the resumes of the teams we played before, we opened up with TLU. I think they got 2 losses now, but at the time they were 21st in the country. We played Mary Hardin-Baylor, they're 3rd in the country, 7-0. We played Hardin-Simmons, they're 11th in the country, and they're 7-0 right now. So we're not playing average teams. I don't think anybody has the tough schedule we have, and then we went on the road for 4 weeks. We covered 4,000 miles on bus travel. So that's hard to do for a young team, So it was a great win for us against McMurray, again, just for the kids, because we've been playing hard. Every now and then we make a mistake just because of our youth or because of our injury. So we haven't played a complete game. And I thought against McMurray, we battled all 4 quarters, and it came down to a red zone stop, at the end of the game where they had a chance to, tie it up or maybe take the lead. And then our offense, we got a penalty, only got a pass interference call, but we converted a 4th down. And I'll take him any way I can get him, and that kind of sealed the game for us. So it was exciting, and that's kind of the way we, as a team, we keep the fans in the game. Even our first win against Wayland, we jumped up 41-10 or something like that, and we let them back in it. So it's exciting football.
Coach, one thing you have to be pleased with was just 1 turnover last week. Talk a little bit about ball security and how that contributed to the win.
We work on it every Wednesday. I stole the Pete Carroll model, turnover Wednesday. So we try to emphasize it. Sometimes it may put more pressure on the guys if you're struggling. But you're not going to win football games with turnovers, bottom line. And I remember last year we played Southwestern. We had 7 turnovers. Yeah. And that was their first win in 50 years. I know they restarted their program. And, it was a 7-point game. And you're not going to win games when you turn the ball over. So we do talk about it. We emphasize it. We practice about it. It was just a good thing it went our way last week.
Absolutely. You're talking a little bit about that long road stretch that you guys had to go through. Now you have a couple of games here at home. How different is it preparing for a home game, being at your home stadium, having the fans behind you? How different is that than being on the road?
Oh, it's huge. Get to sleep in your own bed Friday night. The hotels are fun the first week, but after that it gets become a grind. You got an extra day of prep, getting your scouting reports, getting your your game plan on paper and everything to that nature. This year has been great. We brought back the night games. The atmosphere here has been awesome. And I hope
brought that tailgating.
Yeah, tailgating's been huge, and that's part of college football.
Yeah.
I don't care what level, where you're at. I've seen a couple top 25 places to go tailgate on Facebook, and there was a couple D3 schools in there. None in our conference. Hopefully, maybe in 2 or 3 years, we can be in the new top 25 deal. That's what college is about. That's what college football is about. The night games, like I said, it's been awesome. The crowd support, and our guys need it. And you're in Texas, where football is the #1 sport. And I don't know why our conference plays a lot of 1 o'clock games. A lot of our opponents were upset when I told them we're going to bring 6 o'clock games, and I'm not upset when I have to go to ETBU to play a night game. I'm fine with that. I understand it. It's the experience for our kids. Bottom line, they're not on full. There's no athletic scholarship. They need a great experience, and that's what it's about.
Sure.
Personally, I'd like to play at 8 a.m. and get it over with, but it doesn't work that way.
Coach, going back to injuries, James injured his hand in practice this week. Although he's not listed on the defensive depth chart, could we possibly see some action from him in the backfield?
Well, with James, early, actually again, our preseason scrimmage against Chihuahua, he broke his foot. He played against TLU, had a stress fracture, and he was out for 3 or 4 weeks. Then he came back. The poor kid actually didn't get hurt this week in practice. He hurt it in McMurray. He got tackled on the sideline, tried to brace himself, and they thought it was a break in his hand.
I see.
Good news, and so when that happened, James wouldn't be able to get his medical red shirt because he played too many games. He's a great athlete, and I didn't want him sitting on the sideline, writing on a chart or whatever. So, and we're thin in the secondary, so I suggested let's move him to the secondary if we need him, and if he can play. Yesterday, he walked in our office and said it was only a sprain. So I was like, well, you get to keep your yellow jersey now. We're not going to move you. I don't know how much he'll play this week just because he hasn't practiced with it, but he's going to suit up. He will be available, and hopefully he can finish the last 2 games out if he doesn't get in this week at homecoming.
Yeah. So you mentioned, kind of different switching of personnel. We already talked about, the running back, but talk about a little bit about the quarterback. The 2 different quarterbacks you've had kind of playing. How important is it to get both of them reps with the first team to kind of get a chemistry going with this offense?
It is tough, but we do rotate them. Jordan Reyes is a freshman. Paul Rodriguez is a freshman. And then we got James. And those 3 guys all saw action this year. And I look at Mary Hardin-Bell. They play 2 quarterbacks, okay? And they it's a game within a game. That's why I'm seeing how their 2 quarterbacks are competing. And I presented that to our OC, to Coach McDowell. Said, talk to James, talk to Jordan, talk to Paul, and say, look, when you get in there, see if you can drive and score a touchdown. And then now the other guy gets, okay, let's go checkmate.
Right.
See if you can do the same thing. And that's kind of what Mary Hardin-Bell is doing. I'm not trying to steal theirs because they're a little different scheme, but I like their approach to it. And
Sure.
I think you can do it here.
Sure, and that builds a whole different competition
Exactly.
level within the team there.
Exactly. And all 3 kids are great kids. They all want to compete. And, so I'm happy for it. Hopefully we can keep this going.
Sure.
And next year you might be a 3-headed monster, So let's see how it goes.
Coach, just an update on Steven Saavedra. I believe he was day-to-day this week. What's his prognosis, and can we see him back in the lineup?
Stevens, he's our tight end H-back from El Paso, great kid. He's a sophomore. He tweaked his knee in practice on Tuesday. It's just a sprained knee, but he's going to play in a limited role. He got cleared by our trainers yesterday. So, we just got to be patient with him. I don't want to put a kid out there if he's hurt and it makes it even worse. But he worked out a little bit yesterday. He will suit up as well and just be in a limited role.
So, we talked a little bit about that Wayland Baptist game. Put up 54 points up in that game. Byron Jones obviously set an ASC record, most receiving yards in the game, 285 yards, 3 touchdowns. What do you find that you did differently offensively that game, and how do you build upon that game?
We just clicked early in the, actually, it was the opening kickoff. This is how crazy it is, and this is small college, happens all over the place. Other places I've been. We go for a walkthrough on that Friday up in Lubbock. My kicker comes to me and says, I don't have a kicking tee. I'm like, what? You don't have a kicking tee? He left the kicking tee. So we went to a couple sports stores. We got the old orange kicking tee. I don't even know if it's illegal. I said, well, I'm not going to tell the official or anything. We're just going to go out there and kick it. We kicked it. We kind of pushed it up. They fumbled the opening kickoff. We jumped on it, got it. We go in to score a couple plays later, and it just ignited. And, it's just one of those things. It just snowballed, and, everything clicked. And then, unfortunately, that 3rd quarter, we kind of let them back in on the defensive side. But, but that happens. But we were good enough to finish it out. So.
Coach, I have one more question before I'm done, before we bring Juan on here. But talk a little bit about the series and the rivalry being renewed last week against McMurray. That's always, they're a charter member of the American Southwest Conference, the old TIAA, going back to the days in NAIA. How special is that to bring those people back into the fold and renew that rivalry?
I love it because it's a game in your backyard. It's only 5 hours away. They got a new coach. Coach Henson's an awesome guy. I met him at the head coaches meeting. He was the first coach came to me and goes, I don't care about these night games. I'll play you at night. That's what you want. So I reached out to Phi Tech. Phi Tech came up with a trophy, the I-20 shootout. I mentioned it to Coach Henson, and he was fine with it. So they put a nice trophy together. We called it the I-20 shootout. The trophy is going to go back and forth with the winning school. Thank goodness for us, we get to keep it this year. Don't know where we're going to put it yet. It's still sitting in the middle of our locker room, but we're excited to have it, keep it going. It's a good thing. It's getting us another thing for our student athletes. Something else to play for. Obviously you're playing for wins, for the experience. But every school that I coached in Texas, Blinn and Prairie View, we always had a rivalry game with a trophy. So, and it was funny when our first year at Prairie View, we beat Texas Southern. That was our rival game. We go back in the locker room. We didn't know there was a trophy because they had such a long losing season at Prairie View. We had to bring the team back out to get it. So at least our guys knew about it. They were excited about it. Matter of fact, some of the goals came off of the gold football and the trophy from the guys holding it up. So
kind of gives it that Stanley Cup kind
exactly.
of feeling to it.
Yep. And that's what it is. We're going to keep the scores on it. One of the plaques come off. We can hang that up in our locker room and just keep it going. It's a great atmosphere.
Absolutely.
That was a big game, especially for your defense last time. And what's kind of the mindset of the defense in the locker room coming into homecoming, knowing that last week you really stood tall with your back against the end zone there on a couple fourth down plays and really held your own. What's the mindset of the defense coming into homecoming?
They're ready to play. Last year I believe we had better checkers on defense than offense, and it's always the offense is a little bit behind. I don't care when you're taking a new program over. This year, I think our offense is a little bit ahead just because we got younger guys on defense. And in the next year, I always said it from week one when we were struggling a little bit, I said we're going to be a lot better week 7 than we are right now on defense because they're getting valuable reps. So that was huge. Then we went back on offense. We didn't get the first down at first. It was fourth down. The one thing that came to my mind was the Michigan State game. And I made my mind on being the special team coach. I'm like, I'm not going to punt in our own end zone. I like the way our defense is playing. We got to go out there and play for the other, it was like 64 seconds on the clock. That's what we're going to do. And like I said, fortunately we got the first down and we got to take a knee. But the defense is growing. We're a little bit banged up there. I love our freshman defensive line. We're very, very talented there. Linebackers, we're thin this week due to some injuries, but Casey Sonye got a severe concussion in that game, and he actually went off on a stretcher. He's fine. He got released that night. I know it was very scary at the time. Matter of fact, I started getting tears in my eyes when he started unscrewing his face mask. It's the first time it hit me that, hey, I'm in charge of this group, and I got a guy going out on the stretcher. And I've seen a lot of injuries as an assistant coach, but fortunately for him, he's healthy. He'll miss this week, and we're going to miss him. But he'll still get to play another game before this season's over, and his last opportunity playing football is not going out on a stretcher, so I'm happy about that.
All right, Juan, with this being such a young team, what do you think your role is as a senior to kind of bring these guys up to speed?
We have to lead. We have to lead because how Coach says is them being a young team, they can be a lot better in a year, in 2 years. A lot of the teams in our conference have juniors and seniors, and their records are great, and they're becoming national ranked teams, and that's what we want to become.
Sure. And
for me being a senior, being my last season, I find it a blessing that I'm part of the cultural change here at Sully.
Sure.
Want to talk a little bit about your upbringing, and were you a dual sport athlete in high school, and what led your interest from your transition out of basketball to football on the college level?
Well, actually, I was only a basketball player in high school. I had never played football. They kept asking me to play, but I just kept saying, no, I want to concentrate on basketball. And the reason I came out here was my sisters came to this school, which they came for 2 years. And I came to play basketball here. I got the opportunity with Coach Wright. He gave me it was a blessing in disguise. And then by the end of my sophomore year, the head coach for football back then asked me, hey, would you like to play football? And I said, well, I've never played it before, but I will go ahead and do my best that I can. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the contact because I was real rough in basketball. So.
Obviously, you played a center in basketball or something like that.
Yes, sir.
there's a lot of athleticism and a lot of the same kind of things that are involved, from one sport to the other. How much do you think playing basketball those years, you mentioned you never played football, do you think playing basketball those years kind of prepped you for playing football?
It kind of did. Football, especially in the O-line, it's a lot of footwork.
Mm-hmm.
So with basketball, that's mostly what I did was
Sure.
footwork, and it
Especially being a center.
Yes, sir. So it was an immense help. It helped me get on track real fast,
Mm-hmm.
start learning the plays, and it turned out for the better.
There you go.
Juan, what was the biggest transition you had to make going from basketball to football conditioning-wise?
Actually, when I first started, I was the most conditioned lineman, but what I needed to do was learn how to be physical and be more physical in every single play, and that's what I think I've been doing right.
Well, the reason I ask that, because you look at a lot of kids who played six-man football in high school, and they're generally in a lot better shape, those who go on to play college football, and essentially, six-man football is a lot like basketball.
Mm-hmm.
The conditioning is much more intense, and their prep is so much more higher usually than people who just played 11-man in high school. So that's an interesting segue going at the college level from basketball into football and all that's involved with the conditioning aspect.
Yeah, I can attest to that myself. I played both football and basketball. You're running constantly in basketball,
yes.
up and down the court, up and down the court. Your
Most
average
running.
play for football is 10 seconds. So
Yeah.
you're already there, conditioning-wise,
Yes, sir.
as far as basketball goes. So like you said, you had to work on a little bit of your footwork, getting, the core principles down of, pass blocking, run blocking, that type of stuff for football.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm big as I am. 'Cause like Coach said, it's hard to see the running back right behind me, so
There you go.
hopefully I can keep it up for these last three.
Absolutely.
Now, Juan, I understand you're working on a graduate degree right now.
Yes, sir.
And what did you major in your undergrad, and what are you focusing on your master's degree?
My undergraduate was a Bachelor of Science in Agricultural Business, and they told me I still had eligibility, so I said, you know what, let's go get another degree, and I decided to get an MBA in Business Administration. So it's going well for me right now.
So I guess your long-term plans after college to go into the business world, maybe start a business of your own?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hopefully I can start my business within the next 10 years.
Excellent, excellent. I don't know or remember the last time that we had a football player that was working on his master's degree and still had eligibility, so that's really neat to see, and it's good to kind of touch on a little bit on the academic aspect of the athletics program. So.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure that's kind of hard to balance both worlds there, academically
definitely.
and athletically.
Definitely, it's actually a lot harder than an undergrad. It's more work, more study hours, more group projects, more tests. So it's a lot to handle. But I mean, I got into it, so might as well finish.
Yeah. Great mindset. You're from La Jolla, Texas.
It's La Jolla, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, La Jolla, Texas.
Yes, sir.
That's about as far south Texas as you can get. How was it adjusting to kind of the winters here in the mountains of West Texas?
Well, I fell in love with it. The first time I came was in June 2011, and it was a beautiful, hot, dry, which I actually love that it's dry because where I'm from, it's real humid, so I really didn't like being sticky all the time. But I mean, when I got here, it was amazing. Snow was actually the first time I actually saw it more than one day because we passed through Dallas once. But it's not that cold when you're working out, but it's amazing.
Let's go back to the dual sport thing. How do you mentally prepare for a football game? And in terms of, is there any difference between mentally preparing for that and preparing for a basketball game?
For football, there's a lot of film to watch. You got to watch your opponent and everything he does. For basketball, it's a lot more different. You just got to learn your plays. You got to learn their defense. You can't watch a little film, but if you're not mentally prepared for football with a lot of film and knowing exactly what your opponent's going to do before they do it, then you can be in a lot of trouble.
I can imagine it's different, because you have a 10-second span that you have to execute in football. Basketball, it's kind of, you just kind of go with it. There's, like a progress of the game. You're playing from behind, you're winning. What do you think? You kind of have to prepare differently mentally for football because you have a short span to execute in, then the play's done. You have to start all over.
You just got to be ready.
Yeah.
You just got to be ready. That's a that's why we have meetings. You know, that's why as actually the O-line, we meet individually, just with no coaches, just us. We'll go over film, we'll go over plays. You know, the young guys ask questions for me and the other upperclassmen, and we just try to get everything ready for the game on Saturday.
Does that happen a lot? The younger guys come up to you and kind of ask you,
Yes, sir.
as far as the scheme of the offense or what you do personally? You know, they're really willing to learn. Like, talk a little bit about the kind of the attitude in the locker room being a senior.
Well, during camp especially,
Yeah.
you know, when it was very new to them, they were real confused in the beginning, but then, you know, they started asking me and the other two juniors on the line, and they kept, you know, we kept going, progressing each and every day. And that actually helped us come closer together,
Sure.
knowing each and every one of us, you know, and I mean, football's a family.
Yeah.
It's like, and when all 22 guys get together, including everybody else who has a role, it's real good.
Okay, when you first came here, of course, basketball was on your radar. What started to pique your interest in football? Was it the fact that you'd never played it in high school? Who was putting the plug in your, hey, we could try this out, and that's something I actually may be pretty good at?
It was actually my GA for basketball, and he was actually my former teammate, Anthony Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
He told me, he's like, hey man, you should try it out. If you've never tried it out before, you know, just why not?
Yeah.
I was like, and then you can say you played 2 sports in college. I was like, we'll wait for you here right after the season. I was like, so he was the one that, he even took me downstairs to talk to the coach after they had asked me, because I said, oh, I'm thinking about it. So he took me, and then they talked to me and said, well, okay, we'll report to camp, and that's where it all went through.
Fantastic.
I have just one last question. The personnel change going on in the offense. You got a different quarterback sometimes. You got different running backs behind you there. How hard is it to kind of build the chemistry with each one of these guys? Is it different? Are you guys all kind of pulling together as a team, trying to execute? Is there a difference? You know, when you have a different personnel each week.
Yeah, for them being freshmen, it's like they're so excited. They sometimes get a little altered. So, you know, us as being veterans, we try to tell them, hey, relax, you know.
Yeah, calm him down a bit.
Yeah, and then he'll be like, okay, so this is the play, and I'll be like, all right, you know what to do? Yeah, okay. So we go slow and steady in practice, and then it just comes together in the game.
All right. Juan, thanks for dropping by. All right, we're here with Athletic Director Bobby Metzger.
How are you?
Good. How about yourself?
Good.
First year being an athletic director. What do you think of it so far?
Well, it's, especially with the baseball coach, of course, I'm twice as busy as I ever thought about being. It almost feels like a high school football coach. I know those guys are busy, but a lot of hours for sure. Luckily, I married the right person.
Coach, talk a little bit about the fact that there's probably not a whole lot of people in our conference that are ADs and are having to coach another sport. What are some of the benefits, and what are some of the challenges that poses doing 2 jobs at once?
Yeah, I think there's a few. Just small colleges, you see it more often than you might think, but you're right. They're trying to get away from it just because how much time is involved. I think you got to have somebody's going to do it really, really committed, and luckily I'm probably going to have to be an alumni for that to happen.
Sure.
So it goes way beyond a paycheck for me, and I never set out to be an administrator. So there's a passion there, obviously behind Sul Ross, but in general, just the benefit. Probably if I had to say, well, I'll talk about the negative. For a negative part of it is, you know, I never really wanted to be an administrator. I was always a coach, and but I do have a lot of insight about Sul Ross. I don't know if I could be in an administrative role anywhere else and have enough passion behind it to help. I feel like I could do it here, just because it is my alma mater. And on the coach's side, the benefit of it is I know what these guys go through. Coach Pierce and all the other coaches, when they come in, I've never had a coach come in and say something that I didn't think that I understood why he was saying it. And sometimes administrators don't get that. So I'm probably 90% coach and 10% administrator, because there's some things that you just have to do that's betterment for the whole department.
Sure.
So.
Sure.
It probably helps you out a little bit being a coach yourself, though, because when you have Coach Pierce come up to you, you instantly already know what it's like to be a coach. You kind of know where he's at. You know what he's going through. Does that help the situation a little?
I think so. I think what it does do is take probably some pressure off the coaches. What was bad about it at that point, I'm kind of by nature a problem solver, a servant type of guy. So whenever somebody comes in, I want to address that, whether it be the head football coach or the head cross country coach. They're all the same to me. So but sometimes if I need to address those issues, it does possibly I'm not going to go away. I'm going to address it. So whatever area I'm trying to address, I might rub people the wrong way, but it's just going to have passion for what we're trying to do, and you got to work. So.
Let's talk facilities for a minute. Recently, the student body passed on building an intramural field at Jackson Field, I believe, right next to the playing field. Talk a little bit about that. How will that help not just our intramural programs, but possibly our football program? Playing on or practicing on a turf surface, and then you have the natural grass right next, adjacent to that facility.
I think that's a big time project for us. I think it helps all athletic programs, and the ability to have that piece turfed out there and have it for all of our athletes and all of our individuals or students that deal with the intramurals as well, because it's always big in campus life. To have it right there is going to make our football facility, number one, just facilities in general, look a lot better, and then have access to do whatever we want to, regardless of the weather and the low maintenance. It's just a no-brainer to be able to do something like that. When it's been needed a long time. You may think why we didn't do the football field first and why we're doing that. It comes down to we're all about all students here at Sul Ross, not just athletics. And when you do it on paper, it just makes more sense to do the one that's going to benefit everybody on campus more than just one group. So hopefully down the line we could get some private donors to go ahead and chip over and turf us the football field. At that point we would have it all done, and it's going to make Sul Ross look a lot better and just better for the recruiting. So I think that you're going to see a lot of changes possibly in the next couple of years, and if we can really get after it here by December, we might have them both turfed. But it depends on private donors at that point. So we got the other one taken care of. It's going to be nice. So it'll be useful.
Talk about kind of the difference of your mindset from last year being, baseball. Now this year, you're in charge of everything. Is it hard to not be biased and, want to almost have to spread the wealth a little bit outside of baseball in that manner?
It's actually polar opposite. Number one, I was doing it last year. I was the interim athletic director for 18 months. But at that point, and I've only been athletic director named for about 5 months. And when you're interim, you're just trying to hold the fort down and make sure everything's okay. For the last 5 months, we really started to progress. But no, it's actually polar opposite of what you would think. You would think I'd be more biased to baseball, but I think all the coaches could probably say I never really talk about baseball at all. The only time I talk about it is when I'm out there on the field or I'm doing it, or it's associated there. So I'm for Sul Ross athletics, and that's why I was saying I don't know if I could do the administrative role anywhere else. And I just have so much passion here. I put in the time and the effort. It's all the same to me, whether it be baseball, football, cross country, female, male, or Lobos. That's how I look at it.
Well, Coach, let's talk baseball now. I know it's your favorite subject. You've been waiting to talk about that. We have the Red and White Series. We're right in the middle of that. I believe tonight's the final night of that annual fall event. What's your thoughts on the team heading into the spring semester?
We lost eight seniors, and I know that's springtime stuff. I can just jump in administrative role and talk about all the other sports, because really we don't have to talk about baseball now. There's a lot of things going with new basketball coach and men's basketball coach, and Coach DeVita's in his second year. We got a lot of good things that I've seen out there. But since you're asking me baseball-wise, we had eight guys graduate last year. Eight left the program. 6 of those were starting players for us. So more proud than they just left our program. They all graduated, or they will all graduate by May. They're all still here. A couple of them finishing up. So really proud of those guys, and just the last 2 years that they've had, being hovering right around 500 and being eligible for the conference tournament both years, is just kind of a testament to those guys buying into the goals. And we got 2 goals, which is graduate and win. And whenever every one of your seniors graduate and they win on the field too, makes you proud of those guys that they kind of bought into what you're saying, and it's just all about attitude and recruiting the right people. So, but losing those guys is going to be tough. But I will say that we'll finish up tonight with the Red-White series, and after watching them, we'll have a lot of work to do, just understanding some things philosophy-wise and figuring me out. But they got a chance to be competitive this year, so we're excited about it. But hopefully we can start well. But I'm afraid that it may take us a while before we start to click as a team, and I got to figure out the right lineup. So it's exciting. They'll be competitive. You go out and watch a game, and a guy will be able to catch and throw, and a guy will be able to put the ball in play. It's not going to be laughing stock, so to speak. So they're good players.
this upcoming week here, homecoming week. What do you got on anything different schedule-wise that we're doing, that Sul Ross is doing for homecoming?
You know, when you're trying to grow an athletic program, and I'm so thankful that we have the administration that we have, and Dr. Kibler, and the new position with Butch Worley. What I've learned in the first 18 months, I didn't feel there was some interest there, but I didn't feel the all hands on deck. And absolutely, it's been all hands on deck. And luckily, and I don't know if I'd have took the position if I didn't feel some support. We've got Sandra Chambers in a new role, which is compliance officer, which is big for NCAA purposes. We also made her a game day coordinator. So I get to step back and be able to run baseball and be able to do the things for the program that make it advance in the athletic department. Sometimes you get there's so much to do on game days. You can get just stuck in a rut just preparing for game days.
Sure.
So I don't have to do a lot of that. So all the schedules are out, but all those schedules you see, I don't have to mess with a whole lot of that. But yes, there's a lot of different activities going on through homecoming. I identify the ones I need to be at, and I'll be there. But there's a lot of people that go in on campus playing those roles, which is external affairs, the president's office, the alumni office, campus activities, the Lobo Den. There's so many people, and that's what it takes to really for us to thrive in a small market. You got to have help, and everybody's going to be underpaid for it and not really part of their job description. But it's been nice to see that we've done that. So those activities are out there. I just don't know exactly what they are. But there's a lot of them. It's homecoming, so it's a big weekend.
Coach, you talked a little bit a while ago about a lot of your players that are graduating and getting their degrees, and that's got to be incredibly satisfactory for you, not just as a coach, but as an administrator. As an athletics director, what kind of approach is the department taking to ensure that our kids are getting their degrees, they're getting their eligibility through athletic-wise, but that they're actually they're getting degrees within a 4 or 5 year period?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's anything department-wide. What you hope you hire the right coaches that are going to do that themselves. I mean, it comes down to the coach. I can't have pride for the men's basketball team to graduate, although that's what I'd want.
Sure.
That's got to be Cliff Carroll.
Sure.
And the females, I mean, Troy Cannon's got to do softball, because I don't get a hold of those athletes. If you really want a department to buy in, it's going to be whoever has control over them as mentors and as coaches. Those are the biggest influence. I'm just the guy that wears the sports coat.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just a guy. I'm not there with them every day.
Right.
They develop that relationship with that person, so it's up to that coach to do that.
Right.
And so hopefully, what I can do in helping that is hire the right guys, and you can know within an interview if that matters to them when you ask those questions. So, department-wide, not a whole lot. So when guys are graduating and doing what they're supposed to academically, that's the coaches that he gets credit for that, he or she. Yeah.
As the athletic director, you brought back tailgating this year for football. How important is that, and how much of a role has that played in kind of getting the fans and the students kind of getting ready to go for football? And talk a little bit about tailgating.
Yeah, tailgating is always getting on campus was always something we wanted to do, and luckily we had a president who's really, really supportive, understands the atmosphere and how important the football game day and those kind of things are. It was really, really easy to get that implemented. Again, a lot of people jumped on board, and a lot of people were helping. Once we got it on paper that we were going to do it, everybody just jumped on board. So what we're trying to create is a great game day atmosphere, and I know we're understaffed, just like any small university is, but we want to treat it as big time as we can.
Sure.
And the kids deserve that. They deserve that. They come here to play college football or college baseball or college, whatever it may be, and they deserve to have the best experience that they can have. And one of those, and alumni too, and our former athletes, we want those guys to come back and give them that experience. So it's a big time deal for us, but I think you'll see more and more things like that slowly come on board as we get going. But we're just kind of in the infancy. I've seen all the changes, but there's probably a lot more to come just slowly. So.
Coach, as an administrator, what are some of your short-term goals and your long-term goals as we move into the future?
I think just the short-term wise, just get everybody on the same page. I think everybody is in the department. Really, the atmosphere is. I can't even explain it. I've been here 4 years as a player, 1 year as an assistant coach, and 8 years as a head baseball coach now. So I've seen kind of how it's evolved. So really, just short-term goal, getting everybody in the same vision, understand what we're trying to get done, and we're all a team, whatever sport it is. That part of it. Long-term stuff, you're just looking slowly get better, and there's some big items that we need to address out there. I'd love for our coaches to have assistant coaches and, you know, some things like that. They're going to help. So there's so many I couldn't even explain. I got them on paper. That's what I did. I had, you know, from the first 3 months, I want to get this accomplished. 6 months, and that's kind of how I wrote it down. So I got them. Some of them are, you look at them and be like, yeah, right. But I think you got to shoot big, you know. So, but I think there's things we can do too. You don't always have to go out and get a whole lot of money. Always helps and helps us grow. But you can also use the money you have and appropriate it a little bit differently, maybe they were in the past, and be able to get some things done. So we got a lot of goals and vision that just we could spend all day on that alone. But you can see it slowly if you just pay attention to the programs. You can see it. So,
sure. One last question for you.
Yeah.
The basketball season is coming up. What differently do you have? You mentioned some goals that you have. Do you have anything different set up for basketball? How you're going to approach that, and talk a little bit about, you know, the transition. We're trailing off on football, and basketball is going to start up. Talk a little about, you know, the tradition and what you want to accomplish for the basketball season.
You know, we got a new basketball coach in Aaron Tabitas, which is his second year. I think you're going to see the girls. I looked at them the other day. They look really athletic, probably more athletic than I've ever seen. I could probably say that, like I said, I've had the last 12 or 13 years dating back that I've been around the program and seen them. So that's exciting. He's going to coach them hard. May take some flack sometimes from fans because he coaches those girls hard. So there's a special breed of female that's going to be able to play for Coach Tabitas, but he really has high expectations for them. There's nothing wrong with that. So if they really understand him, they'll see that he's going to coach them hard. So we're excited to see where those girls are. And then you got Cliff Carroll, which is a West Texas guy, and the only guy on staff that has head coaching experience. Been around Bob Knight's program at Tech, won a national championship as an assistant there at South Plains, and went to Lamar with Pat Knight, so knows a lot of people for the recruiting side. So I think that men's basketball will eventually start to get back to hopefully winning conference championships like they did in 2004. I think the people who were around here, and I was a student at that point, I was to the end of my career, but I seen it. And that's what we want for all of our sports. Can we get it done? I don't know, but we're gonna work at it every day because that is a great feeling. And I was envious of them for them to be able to have that, so they know that it can be done. It's all about recruiting the right people, getting the right people in your program, and the right head coach at the right time. But I think we're all working towards that. So men's basketball, they have the most recent conference championship, so there's some. They got some expectation. I think Cliff's ready to take that on. He's that kind of guy. So I'm excited. I don't know what to think about it until we just get going. But I'm excited. You will see some growth in both those programs pretty quick. So.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, and that about wraps up our first edition of Sully Sports Talk. You can find this on srlobos.com, as well as it will be airing on KVLF. Thank you to our guests, Coach Metzger, Coach Pierce, Juan, and that's all the time we have today.